Hello, welcome to Carrow Road, where Norwich City have lost 1-0 to champions in waiting Liverpool, but they've done themselves proud. They gave it a real good go today, and they gave what could well be one of the best ever teams seen in English football, could well go down as the best ever. A real fright today. They hit the post for Alex Tettey when it was still 0-0, and they really pushed Liverpool hard, and the celebrations in the away end from the Reds fans was significant. They were singing, "You know, you're going to believe us, we're going to win the league, and now you're going to believe us, we're going to win the league." And I don't know if they've sung that much before, but I think they appreciated the significance of the Sadio Mane goal in the 78th minute. And the reason it's so windy around me, I'm going to try and keep the microphone nice and protected so it doesn't, hopefully you can't hear it too much, but Storm Dennis has blown in and it is really, really windy. It was a real testing day for Tim Krul in particular, who had a very good day in front of watching Holland manager Ronald Koeman, who was in the director's box, who of course was watching Virgil van Dijk and Jorginho Wijnaldum as well. But from speaking to Tim after the game, it sounds like he's pretty hopeful he'll be back in the Dutch squad ahead of the Euros, and will have a chance of going to the Euros, given that he already has tournament experience, etc. One particularly good double save in the second half, and a good day overall. But it rained pretty heavily throughout the game. You could really see a swirling wind. It was generally blowing towards the Barclays. So first half it was coming right at Krul. Second half Norwich tried to use it and maybe did to a certain extent, but a tough day for defenders and for goalkeepers, and it played a part in the winning goal. There's no denying that. So I thought I'd stay out here. Hair didn't look too bad, does it? It was pretty ruffled by full time, which is weird because we're sat at the back of the stand. We're pretty well protected, but it really was whipping through the stadium, and it's been a really windy day. Of course, last weekend Manchester City's game was postponed, wasn't it? But as far as we're aware, today's game was never in danger, and unfortunately for Norwich, it's finished in a 1-0 defeat. In terms of the teams, Daniel stuck with the team that drew 0-0 at Newcastle, same starting 11. Ben Godfrey back on the bench after his ban, sticking with Emi Buendia on the bench. But there was a decision forced upon him midway through the first half. Sam Byram looks like his hamstring has gone. My colleague Connor Southwell has spotted Sam leaving the stadium on crutches. So that looks like that could be a real blow. Jamal Lewis came on and was pretty good, to be fair. I think he'll have been pretty happy with his day's work. But that could be a real blow for Sam Byram, given how well things have been going for him, given how much he's been talked about as a bargain for Norwich. Liverpool's only change was Naby Keita came into midfield for Fabinho, who was on the bench, and that man Mane was back from a 3-game absence with a hamstring strain, and he came off the bench and was very influential. Despite the weather having a big part in his goal, there was a really classy touch just before it, but we'll come to that. The first half was pretty scrappy, to be fair. It wasn't the best of games. I think both teams were really getting to grips with the conditions, but Grant Hanley was superb first half, seemed to be in the right place at the right time all the time. Did get a yellow card as well, which I thought was a little bit harsh actually for a challenge on Firmino, but made some really important blocks. Him and Kenny McLean both superb first half. Kenny just seemed to be everywhere, real dynamo, driving presence from midfield, and both of those two, well, none of the Norwich players really deserve to be on the losing side today, really, just for the character they showed. But just to tell you the stats. Whoa, told you. Let me get my foot on the tripod. I told you it was windy. The possession, Liverpool 64%, 17 shots and 5 on target. Norwich 6 shots and 1 on target. So I think we can say the right team have won overall, and they're 25 points clear at the top of the league. That long wait since 1990 for their 19th title, 19 titles, is pretty much over, isn't it? They need 5 wins to make sure of it. They are unbeaten in 43 games. They haven't lost in over a year, blah, blah, blah. We don't need to go over how good Liverpool are. The main thing that you guys are concerned with is Norwich City, of course. And there was a big chance, although I think VAR probably would have ruled it offside from the replays that I've seen. That came from Kenny McLean being put clean through. McLean putting Lucas Rupp clean through, and he just had Alisson to beat, but Pukki was catching up over on his left, so he hesitated to shoot, tried to tee up Timu for an easy chance instead, made a mess of that, anyway, and Alisson was able to sort of swipe it away from Pukki. I think VAR would have ruled that one out anyway. The linesman hadn't put up his flag, which I suppose they are supposed to do in that sort of situation. And otherwise, that was about the first half. But the second half really got going. It was a real end-to-end frantic game. The atmosphere was fantastic in here, and it was at full time as well, to be fair. Tim Krul tips one over from Naby Keita in the 57th minute. From the resulting corner, eventually the ball comes back into the box. Salah squeezes a shot through Grant Hanley's legs. It's going into the far bottom corner. Krul gets down, makes a really good save. Keita's reacted quickest to it and is about to turn into an empty net, but Krul somehow manages to stop him from making it 1-0 at that point. Jurgen Klopp responds pretty quickly with a double substitution on the hour. Takes off Wijnaldum and Oxlade-Chamberlain, brings on Fabinho and Mane. 73rd minute though was Norwich's big chance. Again, McLean started the move. Cantwell with some really good play on the left and squares the ball across the box to Tete in a bit of space, who of course signed that new 1-year contract this week, and he just couldn't get the shot off. Or so it seemed. He kept hesitating, and then he just saw a bit of light and went for it and caught Alisson out. He'd gone for the near post, and when you see the replay, it wasn't far away, and it clattered the foot of the post and away. Soon after that, Max Aarons went to corner and really whips up the Barclay, and the atmosphere is bouncing at that point, and it feels like something special could be happening. But just as I'd said to Paddy up in the press box, I literally seconds before I'd said something along the lines of, this is going to be so cruel if they nick it on Norwich. But the game that it reminded me of was, I think it was against Manchester United. Who would that have been? Under Houghton, was it, when Ryan Giggs scored that late goal to rob Norwich of at least a point, and they got it. And the ball comes into the box, and I think Zimmerman essentially loses it in the win, and it just drops behind him. But Mane takes just the slightest of touches to control it away from Max Aarons, and that opens up the shot, and then he fires it under Max and Tim Krul for 1-0. Everyone sort of freezes at that point. I think the Norwich players are hoping for a foul, but there really isn't one there. VAR does have another look at it just to check, as they do with all goals, but they confirm it is a goal and no problems, and the celebrations really kick off from there with the Liverpool fans. Big police presence piled over there to sort of make sure that they weren't going on the pitch at the end, because as I said earlier, this win pretty much seals it for them if it wasn't already sealed. Whereas for Norwich's hopes, they remain 7 points adrift at the bottom of the table. As things stand, Villa play at home to Tottenham tomorrow. This game never really was going to dictate whether they're going to stay up or not. Anything you get from a game like this, particularly against the outstanding team in Europe, the world, is a big bonus at this stage, isn't it? But there was more chances late in the game. 86th minute, Firmino should have made it 2-0 probably. Trent Alexander-Arnold with one of those lovely crosses from the right, almost too powerful, and Firmino couldn't turn it in at the back post. And there was one last chance for Norwich. After the goal, Daniel Farke had reacted, put on Emi Buendia and Josip Drmic for Alex Tete, and Lucas Rupp went for it, really looking for it, and Drmic did have a few touches, actually sort of created a little bit of chaos here and there, but as ever, Emi Buendia, typical cutting through ball right through the middle of the Liverpool defence. Timo Pukki's got that one-on-one opportunity that you want him to have. He's got two defenders closing him down and sort of pulls the trigger maybe a little bit early, but in essence, it's straight at Alisson, straight into his arms, and doesn't really trouble him too much, to be honest. It was one that he snatched at. That was 89th minute, and from there, Liverpool, as champions do, saw things out, and they largely controlled possession and stopped any late rally from Norwich. But the full-time whistle, although of course the away end went mad and they really enjoyed their moment, they were singing about how they're going to win the league and just milking their moment. They didn't get on the pitch, probably thanks to that big police presence, but it was drowned out by the Norwich fans with shouts of yellow, just being proud, really. I think they could appreciate that every single one of the Norwich players gave it their all today, given that this is a club who were promoted from the Championship last year. As champions, the season before that, Daniel Farke's first in the Championship, they finished 14th. So to be where they are and coming so close to taking a point off the European and World Champions, when you look at it in the cold light of day, it is really creditable. And I don't think many Norwich fans, if any Norwich fans, left here today not feeling proud. Disappointed, of course, not to have got a point, which would have been a huge boost to the survival hopes, not in terms of mathematics, but just in terms of the boost to confidence. And talking to Kenny McLean afterwards, he was still really sort of struggling to hide his disappointment because he didn't want to sound like he was pleased with losing, which is the correct way to do things. But if they can't take heart from this, then that would be really disappointing, because there's not many teams who have come this close to taking something from Liverpool this season. It's only Manchester United that drew with them before. So we head to Wolves next Sunday, which is going to be another very tough game. Of course, doing really well this season and last. Then it's back here to play Leicester on a Friday night. Then it's Spurs in the Cup midweek, when of course we know 9,000 Norwich fans are going to be making the trip to North London, which should be a real special occasion regardless of the result. And then it's up to Sheffield United, which should be nice and easy, given that they're sort of chasing Champions League now with, as things stand, Manchester City banned from the Champions League for the next 2 seasons for their financial indiscretions. So given Sheffield United are right up there at the moment, they've got a real prize to chase, whether if that does mean that fifth eventually qualifies you for the Champions League. Who knows? Norwich don't have to worry about that this season. But I think that'll do. A day where Norwich can take great pride in difficult circumstances, as you've been able to hear in the background. Storm Dennis has blown through and made it pretty difficult for playing football in certain ways. But overall, I think Norwich fans can be pretty proud of their team tonight. Head over to penguins.com for the full reaction, analysis and Connor's match report, and we'll be recording a podcast tonight as well, so do check that out Sunday or Monday if you get a chance, and we will catch up with you very soon. Thank you very much for watching.